My name is Willow, and I'm 28. I'm sitting in a stuffy lawyer's office in our small Midwestern town, rain tapping the windows, my purse clutched tight. My siblings Harper and Lucas sit across, their eyes cold judging. The lawyer reads Grandpa's will, and my name comes first. $1. That's my inheritance. The room bursts into laughter. Harper whispers, "It's Grandpa's final jab, calling me the family failure." Their smirks burn, but the lawyer's odd pause hints at more. Have you ever felt dismissed by family? I'd love to know where you're watching from. Like and subscribe if this hits home. I stood outside the lawyer's office, the rain now a steady drizzle soaking my thin jacket. Harper's voice still echoed in my head, her words sharp as broken glass. Worthless. The parking lot was nearly empty, but I could feel their eyes on me, my siblings and their spouses piling into their cars. Lucas revved his engine, a shiny new truck Grandpa's will gifted him, and peeled out his wife, waving smugly. Harper lingered, her heels clicking on the pavement. She stopped, turned and fixed me with a stare that could curdle milk. "You really thought you'd get more than $1?" she said, her voice low, venomous. "After you ditched us for college, left Grandpa to rot. You're lucky he even mentioned you." I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Derek, her husband, smirked from their SUV, calling out, "Come on, Harper, let the charity case go home." Their laughter stung worse than the rain. I fumbled for my keys, my hands shaking, and slid into my beat-up sedan. The door creaked shut, and I sat there staring at the dashboard, my breath uneven. I wasn't worthless. I wasn't. But Harper's words clawed at old wounds. Growing up, Grandpa was my safe place. At 15, I'd sit with him by the lake, our fishing lines bobbing in the water. He'd tell stories of his youth, his voice gravelly but warm, calling me his spark. He said I had a fire in me, one that'd carry me far. I'd believed him then, but now, $1. It felt like he'd changed his mind. I started the car, the engine sputtering, and pulled onto the road. The town blurred past, all gray and familiar. My apartment was 20 minutes away, but I took the long route, needing time to think. Harper's accusation wasn't new. She'd always resented me for leaving, for choosing a scholarship over staying in this suffocating place. Lucas, too, acted like I'd betrayed them by wanting more. But Grandpa had understood. Hadn't he? I stopped at a red light, my fingers tapping the wheel. In the glove box, I kept an old letter from him written when I left for college. I'd found it a year ago, tucked in a box of keepsakes. I pulled it out now, the paper worn soft from years of handling. His handwriting was shaky, the ink faded. "Willow." It read, "You're meant for big things. Don't let this town cage you. I've got a gift for you, something beyond measure. You'll know when the time's right. Beyond measure." I traced the words, my chest tightening. What did he mean? Was this some cruel joke, that dollar his final word? The light turned green, but I sat frozen, the letter trembling in my hands. A car honked behind me, jolting me forward. I shoved the letter back, my mind racing. At home, my apartment was quiet, just the hum of the fridge and the drip of a leaky faucet. I dropped my purse on the couch, the day's weight settling into my bones. Harper's voice, Derek's smirk, Lucas's indifference, they swirled in my head. Even Sadie, my cousin, had stayed silent at the reading. She'd always been the kind one, the one who'd sneak me cookies when Harper locked me out of the kitchen. But today she'd just looked away, her lips pressed tight. I sank onto the couch, staring at the letter again. The words felt like a puzzle I couldn't solve. Grandpa wasn't cruel. He'd never been. So why this? Why leave me nothing but $1 and a vague promise? I closed my eyes, picturing his weathered hands tying a fishing lure, his quiet chuckle when I'd snag a trout. He'd believed in me. But the laughter in that office, the way my family turned on me, it made me doubt everything. The phone buzzed, snapping me back. Harper's name lit up the screen. My stomach twisted. I let it go to voicemail, not ready for more of her venom. The message beeped, and her voice filled the room, cold and clipped. "Willow, don't think this is over. That $1 was Grandpa's way of saying you're out. Stay out of our business." I deleted it, my hands shaking again. But as I tossed the phone aside, something fell from the letter's envelope. A small tarnished key, no bigger than my thumb, clinked onto the coffee table. I stared at it, my heart thudding. It wasn't there before. Or had I missed it? I picked it up, turning it over. No markings, no clues. Just a key, heavy with questions. I turned the key over in my palm, its cold weight grounding me for a moment. My apartment felt smaller, the walls pressing in as Harper's voicemail lingered in my mind. I set the key down and paced the floor, creaking under my steps. What did Grandpa want me to find? I sank back onto the couch, staring at the letter again, but its words offered no answers. My phone buzzed again. Sadie's name this time. I hesitated, then answered, hoping for an ally. Willow, can we talk? Sadie's voice was soft, almost guilty. Not over the phone. The diner tomorrow morning, I agreed, though my stomach nodded. Sadie had always been my safe harbor, the cousin who'd braid my hair when I cried after fights with Harper. But her silence at the will reading cut deep. I hung up, my thoughts spiraling. Was she calling to apologize? Or was she siding with them now? Sleep didn't come easy. I lay awake, the key on my nightstand glinting in the moonlight. By dawn, I was already at the diner, sipping bitter coffee at a corner booth. The place smelled of bacon and syrup, its red vinyl seats worn but familiar. Sadie slid in across from me, her eyes puffy like she hadn't slept either. I'm sorry about yesterday, she started, twisting a napkin. I wanted to say something, but Harper and Lucas got to me before the reading. Told me to stay out of it. Stay out of what? I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. Them laughing at me, calling me worthless. Sadie flinched. They said you didn't deserve anything. That you broke Grandpa's heart when you left. I didn't know what to believe. Her words hit like a punch. I gripped my mug, the heat burning my fingers. You think I abandoned him, Sadie? I wrote to Grandpa every month. I called. He was the one who told me to go to chase my dreams. She looked down, shredding the napkin. I know. But Harper's been saying you only cared about his money. That you used him to get out of town. I leaned back, my chest tight. Harper's lies weren't new, but hearing them through Sadie stung worse. I remembered a summer when I was 17. Harper cornering me in our old kitchen. She'd been drinking, her eyes glassy, accusing me of stealing Grandpa's attention. He talks about you like you're the only one who matters, she'd spat. I'd brushed it off then, but now it felt like a wound reopening. Did you believe her? I asked Sadie, my voice barely above a whisper. She hesitated, then shook her head. Not really. But their family, Willow. They said we had to stick together, keep things fair. I didn't know what to do. Fair, I laughed bitter. Lucas got a truck. Harper got the lake house. I got $1. That's fair. Sadie's eyes welled up. I should have spoken up. I'm sorry. I wanted to forgive her, but the hurt was too raw. I stood, tossing a few bills on the table. I need to figure this out alone, Sadie. Thanks for being honest. Late but honest. Outside, the morning air was crisp, the town waking up around me. I drove aimlessly, the key now in my pocket, its edges pressing into my thigh. Harper's lies. Sadie's silence. Lucas's indifference, they were piling up, each one heavier than the last. But the key felt like a lifeline, a clue Grandpa left just for me. I pulled over near the old library, a place Grandpa loved. Maybe the key fit something there, something he'd hidden. Or maybe I was grasping at straws, desperate to prove he hadn't given up on me. I clutched the key in my pocket, its edges digging into my palm as I stood outside the library. The wind had picked up, scattering leaves across the cracked sidewalk. Lucas's text burned in my mind. Don't stir up trouble. Trouble? I hadn't asked for any of this. But his words, paired with Sadie's confession, lit a fire in me. I wasn't the one who turned family into a battlefield. I pushed open the library's heavy door, the musty smell of old books hitting me like a memory. Inside, the place was quiet. Just a few retirees flipping through newspapers. I wandered to the back where Grandpa used to sit, his nose buried in history books. I could almost see him there, his glasses slipping down, muttering about forgotten stories. The key felt heavier now, like it was pulling me toward something. I checked the reference desk, the old card catalog, even the locked archive room. Nothing fit. Frustration gnawed at me, but I wasn't giving up. Back at my apartment, I spread Grandpa's letter out on the kitchen table, reading it for the 100th time. Look where others don't. What did that mean? I was missing something, and it was driving me crazy. My phone rang, shattering the silence. Harper's name flashed on the screen. I braced myself and answered. "Willow, you need to stop," she said, her voice tight, like she was holding back a scream. "Whatever you're digging into, just drop it. You got your dollar. Be done." Stop what? I snapped, my patience fraying. "Trying to understand why Grandpa humiliated me, or why you're so hell-bent on keeping me down," she laughed cold and sharp. "You're delusional. You left us, Willow. You don't get to play victim now. Grandpa saw through you just like we do." I gripped the phone, my knuckles white. "You don't know what he saw in me. You never bothered to ask." "Oh, I know enough," she shot back. "You charmed him, played the sweet granddaughter while Lucas and I took care of him. And now you're sniffing around for more pathetic." I hung up, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. Her words were poison seeping into every doubt I'd ever had. I wasn't pathetic. I'd worked hard, built a life, even if it wasn't flashy like hers. But the way she twisted my bond with Grandpa made me question everything. Had I misread him? Was I chasing a ghost? I paced the kitchen, the letter staring up at me. That's when I noticed the envelope's corner slightly torn. I hadn't seen it before. I carefully peeled it back, and there, scrawled in Grandpa's handwriting, was a single word: vault. My breath caught. A vault where the bank. His old house. My mind raced, but before I could process it, the doorbell buzzed. It was Sadie, her coat damp from the drizzle. She looked nervous, clutching a small box. "I found this in Grandpa's attic," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It was hidden under some old blankets. I think it's for you." I took the box, my hands trembling. It was plain wooden, no bigger than a shoebox, with a tiny lock that looked like it might match the key. My pulse quickened. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. Sadie's eyes dropped. "Harper was there when I found it. She told me to keep quiet, said you'd cause trouble. I didn't want to fight her, Willow. She's intense. Intense. That was one way to put it. I wanted to snap at Sadie to demand why she kept folding under pressure, but I stopped myself. She was here now, trying. I opened the box, the key turning smoothly in the lock. Inside was a single photograph, me and Grandpa at the lake, my teenage self grinning, his arm around me. On the back, in his handwriting, I spark. "Trust yourself." Tears pricked my eyes, but before I could say anything, my phone buzzed again. Another text from Lucas. "You're not welcome at the house anymore. Stay away." The words hit like a slap. Harper's lies. Sadie's wavering, Lucas's rejection, they were closing in, suffocating me. I clutched the photo, my anger flaring. I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. I stood frozen, the photograph trembling in my hand, Grandpa's words on the back searing into me. My spark. Trust yourself. But Lucas's text felt like a door slamming shut, locking me out of the family for good. Sadie shifted uncomfortably, her eyes darting to the box. "I shouldn't have come," she mumbled, stepping toward the door. "Harper's going to kill me if she finds out." "Then why are you here?" I asked, my voice cracking. "Why give me this, if you're just going to run back to her?" Sadie's face crumpled. "I don't know, Willow. I thought maybe I could fix things. But I'm stuck in the middle. They're my family too." She left the door clicking shut, leaving me alone with the photo and a gnawing ache. Her half-hearted gesture hurt worse than silence. I wanted to scream, to demand why everyone kept choosing Harper's side. I sank onto the floor, the wooden box beside me. The word vault from the envelope haunted me. I tried to piece it together, but my thoughts were a mess, tangled with Lucas's warning and Sadie's retreat. I called the bank, my voice shaky, asking about safe deposit boxes in Grandpa's name. The clerk was curt. "We can't disclose that without proof of ownership. Come in with documentation." I had none. Just a key and a hunch. Desperate, I drove to Grandpa's old house, now Harper's, despite Lucas's text. The place loomed at the end of a gravel road, its porch sagging under years of neglect. I parked a block away, my heart pounding. I didn't know what I was looking for, but the vault had to be tied to Grandpa's past. Maybe something in his study where he'd kept his old ledgers. I crept around back, the grass damp under my sneakers, and peered through a window. The house was dark, but Harper's car was in the driveway. I hesitated, my breath fogging the glass. Then I heard voices. Harper and Derek arguing inside. "She's up to something," Harper snapped. "That little stunt at the will reading, she's not done." "I know her." Derek's voice was smug. "Let her try. She's got nothing. $1 and a sob story won't get her far." I ducked down, my chest tight. They were talking about me like I was a stray dog scavenging for scraps. Harper's next words cut deeper. Grandpa was wrong about her. All those years fawning over her, calling her special. She's nothing but a leech. My knees buckled. I pressed my back against the house, the cold brick grounding me. Harper didn't just hate me, she hated the idea of me, the version Grandpa saw. I wanted to barge in to scream that I wasn't a leech, that I'd loved him, not his money. But my feet wouldn't move. Doubt crept in, poisoning my memories. Had I been wrong about him? Was I chasing a lie? I slipped away, the key still in my pocket, heavier than ever. Back in my car, I drove to the edge of town where the fields stretched endless under a gray sky. My phone buzzed again. A voicemail from an unknown number. I played it, and a man's voice, smooth and professional, filled the car. "Ms. Willow, this is Mr. Grayson's assistant. We need you at the office tomorrow. There's more to your grandfather's will. Come alone." My heart stopped. After the $1. After the humiliation, I gripped the steering wheel, anger and fear colliding. Harper's words. Lucas's rejection, Sadie's wavering, they were suffocating me. And now this cryptic call, dangling hope I wasn't sure I could trust. I pulled over my hands, shaking the photograph still in my coat. Grandpa's face stared back, his eyes warm but unreadable. What had he done? And why was my family so desperate to keep me from finding out? I walked into Mr. Grayson's office the next morning, my stomach churning like I'd swallowed a storm. The air was thick with the smell of polished wood and stale coffee. He sat behind his desk, his gray suit crisp, his face unreadable. No one else was there, just us, the silence heavy. I set the photograph from the box on the desk, my fingers lingering on Grandpa's smile. "You said there's more," I started, my voice steadier than I felt. "What is it?" Mr. Grayson leaned back, adjusting his glasses. "Your grandfather was a private man, Willow. He left instructions for this meeting to be just you. No family." He pulled out a sleek tablet and tapped the screen. "He recorded something for you. Before you see it, I need to explain." My pulse quickened. "Explain what?" He held up a hand, calm but firm. "Arthur set up an offshore account years ago. It's in your name. Millions, Willow. Hidden from everyone, even your siblings." I froze, the words not sinking in. Millions. My mind blanked like a radio losing signal. I thought of the $1, the laughter, Harper's venom. "Why me?" I whispered, my throat tight. "Why not them?" Mr. Grayson's eyes softened. "He trusted you. Only you. But there's more." He turned the tablet toward me and pressed play. Grandpa's face filled the screen, older than in the photo, his eyes tired but bright. My chest ached at the sight of him. His flannel shirt wrinkled, his voice gravelly but warm. "Willow," he said, "if you're watching this, I'm gone. I know the will stung. I'm sorry for that. Had to keep things quiet. You're my spark, always were. This money, it's yours. Not for greed, but for good. You'll know what to do. Don't let them break you." Tears burned my eyes, his words hitting like a wave. I wanted to reach through the screen to hug him, to ask why he'd made it so hard. But before I could process, the door burst open. Harper stormed in, Lucas trailing behind, their faces twisted with fury. "What's this?" Harper snapped, glaring at Mr. Grayson. "A secret meeting. You're scheming with her." I stood clutching the tablet. This isn't about you, I said, my voice shaking but firm. It's about Grandpa. Lucas sneered, stepping closer. Oh, please. You manipulated him. Got him to hide money for you. What did you do? Willow sweet-talked him while we were changing his bedpans. That's not true, I shouted, my hands trembling. You don't know what he wanted, Harper laughed, bitter and cold. We know enough. You're a liar, always were. Grandpa was senile by the end. You took advantage of him. Her words were a knife twisting deep. I thought of the summers we'd spent together, the way Grandpa taught me to cast align his quiet pride when I got my scholarship. Had they really convinced themselves I'd conned him? I looked at Mr. Grayson, desperate for backup, but he was calm, almost too calm. Ms. Harper, Mr. Lucas, he said, standing. This meeting is private. You're not authorized to be here. Harper's eyes narrowed. Authorized were his family. She's the outsider, she pointed at me, her voice rising. She's stealing from us. I clutched the tablet tighter, Grandpa's voice still echoing in my head. My spark. I wanted to believe him, but their accusations were drowning me. Lucas stepped closer, his jaw tight. We're taking this to court, Willow. You're not getting away with this. My heart pounded, the room spinning. Millions. A secret account. Grandpa's trust. It was too much, and their hatred was crushing me. I looked at Mr. Grayson, his face still unreadable, and realized he was waiting for me to decide what came next. But Harper's glare. Lucas's threat, they were closing in, and I wasn't sure I could fight them. I stood there, the tablet heavy in my hands, Grandpa's words looping in my mind. Harper's finger was still pointed at me, her face flushed with rage. Lucas loomed behind her, his arms crossed, eyes cold as steel. The air in Mr. Grayson's office felt like it was suffocating me, every breath a struggle. I wanted to scream to tell them they were wrong, but my voice caught in my throat, trapped by their accusations. Harper stepped closer, her voice dropping to a venomous hiss. You think you're special, don't you? Grandpa's little pet sneaking behind our backs. I bet you whispered in his ear, told him we didn't care. That's how you got this account, isn't it? I shook my head, tears spilling over. I didn't ask for anything. I loved him. You know that. Love, Lucas scoffed, his laugh bitter. You left him, Willow. You left all of us. And now you're sitting on millions. You're a thief. His words slammed into me, each one heavier than the last. I thought of the nights I'd called Grandpa from college, his voice crackling through the phone telling me he was proud. Had they forgotten that? Or did they just not care? I looked at Mr. Grayson, hoping he'd step in, but he was gathering papers, his face still maddeningly calm. Derek appeared in the doorway, his smirk wider than ever. Told you, Harper. She's been playing the long game. Probably had this plan since she was a kid. He leaned against the frame casual, like he was enjoying the show. What did you do? Willow, bat your eyes at the old man. Promise him your undying loyalty. My stomach twisted. I wanted to lunge at him to wipe that smug grin off his face, but my legs felt like lead. Instead, I clutched the tablet, my nails digging into its edges. You don't know me, I said, my voice low, trembling. You don't know what Grandpa and I had. Oh, we know, Harper snapped. We know you were his favorite, always parading around like you were better than us. And now this a secret account. You're disgusting. Her words were a public execution, stripping me bare in that small office. I felt the weight of every fight we'd ever had, every time she'd called me selfish, every moment I'd tried to prove I belonged. My chest heaved, my breath ragged. I wanted to tell them about the summers at the lake, the way Grandpa taught me to dream big, but their faces told me they wouldn't listen. They'd already written their story about me. Mr. Grayson finally spoke, his voice cutting through the tension. This account is legally Willow's. Arthur was clear in his instructions. If you contest it, you'll need evidence, not accusations. Harper whirled on him. Evidence. She's the evidence. Look at her acting all innocent. She's been scheming for years. She turned back to me, her eyes blazing. You won't get away with this. We'll drag you through court, Willow. Everyone in town will know what you are. Lucas nodded, his jaw tight. You're not family anymore. You're just a grifter who got lucky. The room spun their voices, blending into a roar. I thought of Grandpa's video, his tired eyes, his trust in me. But their hatred was louder, drowning it out. I felt small, exposed like a child caught in a storm with nowhere to hide. Harper's threat of court, Lucas's rejection, Derek's mockery, it was too much. I stumbled back, the tablet slipping from my hands, hitting the floor with a dull thud. My world was crumbling and I had no idea how to stop it. I left Mr. Grayson's office, the tablet back in my hands, its weight grounding me as Harper's threats echoed. My car felt like a sanctuary, the rain now a soft patter against the windshield. I drove to my apartment, my mind a tangle of their accusations and Grandpa's voice. "You're my spark." I wasn't a thief. I wasn't a leech. But their words had burrowed deep, and I knew I couldn't just sit still. I had to act to prove them wrong, not for them, but for me. At home, I spread out Grandpa's wooden box, the photograph, and the key on my kitchen table. The word vault stared up from the torn envelope. I needed answers, but I also needed to protect what Grandpa had given me. I called Elise, a financial advisor I'd met through a coworker. Her office was in a strip mall, all fluorescent lights and fake plants, but her voice was warm when she answered. "Willow, what's going on?" she asked. "You sound shaken." I told her everything, the offshore account, the millions, my siblings' threats. Her silence was thoughtful, not judgmental. "This is big," she finally said. "Accounts like that can be tricky. You'll need to secure it legally and fast before they contest it. Can you come in tomorrow?" I agreed, my pulse steadying. Elise's calm felt like a lifeline. The next morning I sat across from her, her desk cluttered with papers and a photo of her son. She leaned forward, her eyes sharp but kind. "This account is yours, Willow, but your siblings aren't wrong about one thing: courts can be brutal. We need to lock it down. Do you have anything proving Arthur's intent?" I slid the tablet across, showing her Grandpa's video. She watched, her expression softening. "He loved you," she said quietly. "This is solid, but we'll need more." "Any documents?" "Letters, anything tied to the account." I thought of the key still in my pocket. "There's this," I said, pulling it out. "And a box with a photograph." It had a lock this key opened, and the word vault written on an envelope. Elise's eyebrows lifted. "That's a start. If there's a safe deposit box, it might have more. Let's check the bank first." We drove to the local bank, a brick building with faded awnings. The clerk was skeptical, her lips pursed as I explained the key. "We need an account number or a box ID," she said, tapping her pen. I didn't have either, but I showed her the envelope with vault scrawled on it. She sighed and checked her system, then paused, her eyes narrowing. "There's a box under Arthur's name, but it's registered to you. You'll need ID." My heart leapt. I handed over my license and she led us to a vault room, all cold steel and dim lights. The key fit perfectly, the box sliding open with a soft click. Inside were Grandpa's journals, leather-bound and worn, stacked neatly. I opened one, my hands trembling. Pages of numbers, dates, investments. His secret life as a quiet investor. A note tucked inside read, "Willow, build something lasting. This is your start." I looked at Elise, my throat tight. "He planned this," I whispered. "He wanted me to have it." She nodded, her voice firm. "This is your proof. But your siblings won't back down easily. Are you ready for a fight?" I clutched the journals, my resolve hardening. For the first time, I felt Grandpa's trust like a shield. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was choosing to stand up to protect what he'd given me. But as we left the bank, my phone buzzed. A text from Harper, "Meet me tonight. My house. We need to talk." My stomach twisted. This wasn't over, but I was done running. I stared at Harper's text, my thumb hovering over the screen. "Meet me tonight. Her house." The journals sat heavy in my lap, their pages whispering Grandpa's faith in me. I wasn't the same Willow who'd shrunk under their laughter at the will reading. I tucked the journals into a bag, grabbed my coat, and drove to Harper's, the lake house Grandpa once called home. The gravel crunched under my tires as I pulled up the porch light, casting shadows across the lawn. Harper opened the door before I could knock her face tight, her arms crossed. "You came," she said, her voice flat. "I didn't think you'd have the guts." I stepped inside, the air thick with the scent of lavender candles. The living room was pristine, all-new furniture, a stark contrast to Grandpa's cluttered warmth. "You wanted to talk," I said, keeping my tone even. "So talk." She sat on the couch, gesturing for me to join her. I stayed standing, the bag with the journals slung over my shoulder. "I heard about the account," she said, her eyes narrowing. "Millions, Willow." "Really, you expect me to believe you didn't know I didn't?" I said, my voice steady despite the heat rising in my chest. "But you wouldn't believe me anyway. You've already decided who I am." She leaned forward, her nails digging into the cushion. "You don't get it. Lucas and I took care of him. We were here. You were off playing scholar, calling once a month like it made you a saint. And now you get everything." I took a breath, choosing my words carefully. "I'm not here to fight Harper. I don't want to take anything from you. But Grandpa chose this. If you want, I can share some of it. Not because I owe you, but because I don't want this to tear us apart forever." Her laugh was sharp, cutting. "Share. You think I need your pity? You're not the hero here, Willow. You're just lucky." She stood, pacing her heels, clicking on the hardwood. "We're still going to court. You won't win." I thought of Elise's warning, the journals, Grandpa's note urging me to build something lasting. Harper's anger wasn't about money. It was about years of resentment, her belief that I'd stolen Grandpa's love. I could have screamed, could have thrown her accusations back in her face. But I didn't. Instead, I reached into my bag and pulled out one journal, setting it on the coffee table. "Read this," I said quietly. "It's Grandpa's. Not about the money, but about what he wanted. For me. For all of us." She stared at the journal, her jaw tight, but didn't touch it. "You think a book changes anything? You're still the same selfish girl who left." I nodded, swallowing the sting. "Maybe. But I'm not leaving this time. Not from this fight." I turned to go, my hand on the door. "I'll see you in court, Harper. But I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing it for him." Outside, the night was cool, the stars sharp against the sky. I slid into my car, the journal's weight gone from my bag, but heavy in my mind. For the first time, I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not fear, but clarity. I wasn't just defending the account. I was defending Grandpa's trust, my place in his heart. As I drove away, the lake house fading in my rear view, I caught my reflection in the mirror. My eyes were steady, resolute. I wasn't running anymore. I woke the next morning with a strange calm, the kind that settles after a storm. Leaving that journal with Harper felt like laying down a gauntlet, not out of spite, but out of truth. I'd driven home under a starlit sky, my reflection in the mirror showing a woman I was starting to recognize. But now, in the pale light of my apartment, the weight of what came next pressed against me. Harper wouldn't back down. Neither would Lucas. And court was looming. I met Elise at her office again, the journals stacked between us like a fortress. She flipped through them, her pen scratching notes. "These are gold, Willow," she said, her voice steady. "Arthur's handwriting, his instructions. It's clear he meant this for you. But your sibling's lawyer is aggressive. They're claiming undue influence." "Undue influence?" I asked, my stomach tightening. "They think I forced him," Elise nodded, her eyes meeting mine. "They're saying you manipulated him in his final years when he was frail. It's a common tactic. We'll counter with these journals and the video, but it's going to be a fight." I leaned back, the chair creaking under me. The idea that I'd coerced Grandpa, the man who taught me to tie a fishing knot, made my skin crawl. I pictured his weathered hands, his quiet laugh when I'd fumble a cast. He'd trusted me, not them. But their lies were spreading, tainting those memories. Later that day, I walked into the courthouse, a gray building that smelled of old paper and wax. Mr. Grayson was there, his suit impeccable, his face calm but focused. The hearing was preliminary, just to set the stage, but the room felt like a battlefield. Harper sat across from me, her posture rigid, her eyes avoiding mine. Lucas was beside her, his jaw set, staring straight ahead. Their lawyer, a sharp-eyed man named Carter, stood, his voice smooth, as he laid out their case. Arthur was vulnerable, Carter said, addressing the judge. Willow took advantage, isolating him, securing an account that rightfully belongs to the family. We request a freeze on the funds until we investigate. My heart pounded, but I kept my face still, my hands folded tightly in my lap. Mr. Grayson stood, his voice measured. My client has evidence of Arthur's clear intent journals, a video, all in his own words. This is not manipulation. It's a deliberate choice. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes, nodded but said little, her pen moving across her notes. I glanced at Harper, hoping to see a crack in her armor, but she was stone, her lips pressed thin. Lucas whispered something to her, and she nodded, her gaze flicking to me for a split second, cold and unyielding. After the hearing, I stepped outside, the air crisp against my flushed cheeks. Mr. Grayson caught up to me. "They're grasping, Willow," he said quietly, "but they're loud. Stay strong." I nodded, but my strength felt brittle. As I walked to my car, I saw Sadie across the street, standing by a lamppost, her coat pulled tight. She didn't approach, just watched, her face a mix of guilt and something I couldn't read. I wanted to call out to ask why she was there, but my throat tightened. Her silence in all this felt like another betrayal, quieter but just as sharp. Back home, I opened the journals again, my fingers tracing Grandpa's careful script. One entry caught my eye, dated a year before he died. "Willow's the one who sees past the noise. She'll carry it forward." My chest ached, a mix of pride and fear. I was carrying it, but at what cost? Harper's cold stare, Lucas's accusations, Sadie's distance, they were tearing at me, and the fight was only beginning. I sat on my couch, the journals still open, Grandpa's words blurring under my tired eyes. The courthouse lingered in my mind. Harper's rigid silence, Lucas's hard stare. Sadie's distant figure by the lamppost haunted me most. Her hesitation a quiet wound. I'd stood up for myself, left that journal with Harper, faced them in court, but the victory felt hollow. The town was starting to whisper, neighbors glancing at me in the grocery store, their eyes curious, judgmental. The next day I drove to Harper's lake house uninvited. I needed to see if the journal had changed anything. The porch creaked as I knocked, my breath visible in the chilly air. Harper opened the door, her face pale, the journal in her hand. She didn't invite me in, just stood there, her fingers tightening around the leather cover. "You left this," she said, her voice low, almost broken. I read it, all of it. I waited, my heart thudding. And her eyes met mine, not angry but raw, like she'd been crying. "He wrote about you, pages and pages. How you listened, how you cared. He barely mentioned us." She swallowed, her voice cracking. "I thought I was enough for him. But it was always you." I wanted to feel triumph, but her words cut instead. "I saw the girl she used to be, my big sister who'd braid my hair before school, before jealousy tore us apart." Harper. "I didn't ask for this," I said softly. "I didn't know." She shook her head, stepping back. "Don't. Just don't." The door closed, not a slam, but a quiet click that felt final. I stood there, the cold seeping through my coat, her pain echoing mine. I'd wanted her to see the truth, but it only deepened her hurt. Back in my car, I drove to the diner, needing familiar ground. The waitress, an older woman named Ruth, poured my coffee without asking. "Heard about the will," she said, her voice kind but cautious. "Folks are talking, Willow, saying you got more than you should." I nodded, staring into my mug. The town's judgment was spreading a slow poison. I thought of starting the charity using Grandpa's money for good, but even that felt tainted now. Would they call it a stunt, a way to buy their approval? My phone buzzed, a message from Sadie. "I'm sorry I didn't come closer yesterday. I want to help. Meet me at the community center." I didn't reply, not yet. Her offer felt genuine, but her earlier silence still stung. I paid for my coffee and drove to the center, where Sadie was setting up chairs for a kids' event. She saw me and smiled, tentative. I'm volunteering here, she said. Thought maybe you could too. For Grandpa. I nodded, my throat tight. We worked in silence, folding chairs, taping up streamers. Her presence was a small comfort, but the weight of Harper's words, the town's whispers, Lucas's absence, it pressed down. I'd fought for Grandpa's trust, but it had cost me my family. As I taped a final streamer, my hands slowed, my chest heavy. I'd won the battle, but the war felt endless, and I was so tired of fighting alone. The community center's fluorescent lights buzzed softly as I folded the last chair, the kids' event over, laughter still echoing in my mind. Sadie had left with a quiet nod, her offer to help lingering like a fragile thread between us. I drove to the lake, the place where Grandpa and I used to sit, its water now still under a fading sky. I needed this place, its calm, to sort through the storm inside me. The fight with Harper, the courthouse. The town's whispers, they'd left me raw. But standing here, I felt a shift, like I was finally catching my breath. I walked to the dock, my boots thudding on the weathered wood. The air smelled of damp earth and pine, sharp and grounding. I sat at the edge, my legs dangling, and pulled out a small stone from my pocket, one I'd picked up years ago with Grandpa. He'd said smooth stones held stories worn down by time but never broken. I turned it over, its cool weight steadying me. I thought about Harper's face at her door, the journal in her hand, her voice cracking with hurt. I'd wanted her to understand Grandpa's choice, but I saw now that her pain wasn't just about money. It was about feeling unseen, just like I'd felt all those years. Lucas's silence was its own kind of wound, a wall I couldn't climb. But Sadie's small step forward, helping at the center, felt like a crack in that wall, letting light through. I tossed the stone, watching it skip across the water, each ripple spreading wide. I'd spent so long fighting to prove I wasn't what they thought, selfish, a leech, a thief. But sitting here, I realized I didn't need their approval. Grandpa's trust was enough. His journals, his words, his belief in me, they were my anchor. I wasn't just fighting for the account anymore. I was fighting to honor him, to build something that mattered. My phone buzzed, pulling me back. A text from Sadie. Found something else in Grandpa's things. A letter for you. Can I drop it off? I stared at the screen, my heart lifting slightly. Another piece of him, maybe another clue. I typed a quick reply telling her to come to my apartment tomorrow. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the lake gold, I leaned back on the dock, the wood creaking softly. For the first time in weeks, I felt still, like the water before me, ready for whatever came next. The next morning, I woke to a soft knock at my apartment door. Sadie stood there holding a thin envelope, her smile hesitant but warm. This was in Grandpa's desk, she said, handing it to me. It's addressed to you. I took it, my fingers brushing the familiar slant of his handwriting. We sat at my small kitchen table, coffee brewing, its bitter aroma filling the room. Sadie didn't say much, just watched as I opened the envelope, her presence steady like a quiet apology. Inside was a single page folded neatly. Grandpa's words were simple, written in black ink. Willow, life's not about who's loudest. It's about who keeps going. You've got that strength. Use it. I read it twice, my eyes lingering on his signature, a loopy scrawl I'd known since childhood. I didn't cry. Instead, I felt a stillness like the lake at dawn, its surface unbroken. Sadie broke the silence. I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you sooner, she said, her voice low. I was scared of Harper, of losing what little family we have left. But I see you now, Willow. You're not what they say. I nodded, my throat tight, but my heart lighter. Thanks, I whispered. That means something. We sipped our coffee, the quiet between us, not awkward, but healing like a wound finally closing. Sadie offered to help with the charity idea, suggesting a community fair to honor Grandpa. I agreed, the idea sparking something warm inside me. Later, I walked to the new office I'd rented for the charity, a small space above a bookstore, its windows overlooking the town square. The desk was bare, just a notebook and a pen, but it felt like a beginning. I sketched out plans for the fair games for kids, a scholarship fund in Grandpa's name. My phone stayed silent, No texts from Harper or Lucas. Their absence ached, but it didn't consume me anymore. I was building something not for their approval, but because it was right. As I locked up the bookstore owner, an older woman named Lila waved me down. "Heard you're starting something for Arthur," she said, her eyes crinkling. "He'd be proud." Her words settled over me like a warm blanket. I smiled, thanked her, and stepped into the evening air. The town felt different now, not a cage, but a place I could shape. I walked home, my steps slow, my breath steady, carrying Grandpa's letter in my pocket like a promise I was ready to keep. The community fair buzzed under a clear September sky, the town square alive with kids chasing balloons and neighbors sharing lemonade. I stood by a booth, handing out flyers for the scholarship fund we'd named after Grandpa. My office above the bookstore had become a hub, papers strewn with plans for tutoring programs and art classes. Sadie was nearby laughing with a group of volunteers, her warmth a quiet anchor. The weight of the past months. Harper's anger, Lucas's silence, the courthouse battles felt lighter here, like a load I'd learned to carry. I caught sight of Harper across the square helping at a cotton candy stand. She'd shown up unannounced, her apron slightly crooked, her smile hesitant when our eyes met. We hadn't spoken since that day at her house, but her presence felt like a step, small but real. I nodded at her, and she nodded back, a fragile truce in the afternoon light. As the sun dipped, I slipped away to a quiet corner, leaning against a tree, the bark rough under my palms. The fair's noise faded, and I thought about the woman I'd been 6 months ago, curled up in my apartment, doubting everything. I'd spent so long fighting to prove I wasn't what they said, a leech, a thief. But here, watching kids run through the grass, I realized I didn't need to prove anything anymore. Grandpa's trust had been enough, and I was building something real with it. A little girl, maybe 7, tugged at my sleeve, her braid swinging. "Miss Willow, I made this for you," she said, handing me a folded paper. I opened it to find a crayon drawing of a sun over a lake, bright and uneven. My heart caught, not from pain, but from something softer, like hope taking root. I thanked her, tucking the drawing into my pocket, its edges brushing against Grandpa's letter. Back at my apartment that night, I lit a single candle, its flicker casting shadows on the walls. The fair had been a success, but it was the small moments, the girls' drawing, Sadie's laugh, even Harper's quiet nod, that stayed with me. I'd fought for Grandpa's legacy, not just the money, but the belief he'd had in me. And for the first time, I felt like I was living up to it, not for them, but for myself. I sat by the candlelight, the girl's drawing now on my table, its bright crayon sun glowing in the dim room. The fair had ended hours ago, but its energy lingered, a quiet hum in my bones. I thought about Harper's nod, the way it wasn't forgiveness, but a start, a crack in the wall between us. I thought about Lucas, still silent, his absence a shadow I couldn't shake. And I thought about myself, the woman who'd walked into that lawyer's office months ago, clutching a purse and a lifetime of doubts. I opened my notebook, the one I'd been filling with charity plans, and started writing. Not about the fair or the scholarships, but about me. Words spilled out about the nights I'd doubted Grandpa's love, the sting of Harper's words, the weight of carrying a legacy I hadn't asked for. Writing it down felt like exhaling, like letting go of a breath I'd held too long. I wasn't the black sheep anymore, nor the spark Grandpa saw. I was just Willow, learning to stand steady. The next morning I walked to the office, the town square quiet now, littered with stray streamers. Sadie was there sorting donation forms, her smile soft. "You did good yesterday," she said. "Grandpa would have loved it." I nodded, setting down my bag. "I think he would have. But I'm not doing it for him anymore. I'm doing it for me." The words surprised me, their truth settling deep. I'd spent so long chasing his approval, then fighting my family's scorn. But now I was building something because it mattered to me, because it could change lives, starting with my own. Harper called later that day, her voice hesitant. "I'm not ready to join your board," she said, "but I'll keep volunteering. For now." It wasn't a hug or a tearful reunion, but it was enough. I thanked her, my voice steady, and hung up. I didn't need her to love me. I needed to love myself, to trust the woman I was becoming. That night I stood on my balcony, the town lights twinkling below. I thought about Grandpa's last letter, his call to keep going. He'd given me more than money, he'd given me a chance to choose who I wanted to be. I'd been hurt, betrayed, dismissed, but I'd learned to hold my ground not with anger but with quiet strength. The real gift wasn't the account. It was the freedom to let go of grudges, to build instead of break. I've been thinking a lot about what makes a family love pain or something in between. What's healed you when you felt broken by those closest to you? I'd love to read your stories in the comments. If this journey resonated, please like, subscribe, or share it with someone who might need it. Thank you for listening, for being here. Here's to finding peace in our own way, one step at a time.